On today's episode of the Players Experience podcast, I talked with Todd Warriner about his hockey career, what it was like playing with a few different NHL teams, mainly the Maple Leafs, and what it was like being the hometown kid playing for your hometown team, what it was like playing in the Air Canada Center, including a story that he has about a goal and marking himself in the history books, as well as some advice for future hockey players. Before we start the episode, just want to thank all of our sponsors as well as Jay Solty Productions for putting together today's video. So without further ado, let's get Todd on and start talking about his hockey career and experiences. Hey Todd, how's it going today?
Good, right? Good to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. How are things out on your end right now?
Good, yeah. I'm in Tilburg in the Netherlands, coaching over here. So we're gearing up here now for playoffs. I got a good team. We're in first place, so we're pretty happy with the way the season's gone. Just got a few games left now, and pretty exciting. It's my first real, I coached a little bit last year in the same league, but in Germany, and then now I'm in this sort of unique spot in the Netherlands, the one team that's not in the German league, playing in the league. So it's good team. Lots of things to like. Top of the table, as they say over here. So we're in good shape heading into playoffs.
Good. Well, all the best with playoffs. I know how hectic it can be. I'm part of a few hockey teams here, and we're in the middle of playoffs as well. And it's going to get really hectic soon. So good luck with that. So, I just wanted to kind of talk about your hockey career. My first question for you is: how did the passion for hockey get started for you?
How did the passion for hockey? Pretty young. I grew up in a house where I was always at the rink. My mom was a figure skating coach, and my dad played hockey his whole life. He was a senior hockey player, a junior hockey player back in Canada, and so I was just a rink rat. You know what I mean? I was one of those kids that the rink managers hated because I'd be kicking the ball around or shooting the puck around in the lobby, and in minor hockey, I grew up in Blenheim. Our minor hockey team that I played on growing up had a number of really good players, and so we were successful, and that obviously helps, kindle the kind of passion you want to have. Went to several Ontario championships. We won a silver stick. Just a really competitive group of guys I grew up with who all loved the sport, had great coaching, so that's where it all started for me. And then, after that, I played junior in Chatham, Windsor. It all happened pretty fast before I got to pro. And so I grew up in a small town, didn't really know what I was up against, just enjoyed the game, practiced a lot, spent a lot of time at the rink, and that sort of was the start for me.
Okay, that's cool. And I love the rink rat stories because I feel like I'm in the rink right now, like just so much. But it's a different breed, and you really gotta love just being around rinks and around guys and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. So
yeah, and we played outside. We played outside too, like we pond hockey and stuff. I was thinking about that because we used to during COVID we froze the pond, my in-laws pond, and my son and all his buddies and our kids would skate on it just to get some fresh air at that time. But I did a fair bit of that. I played all sports, but and largely with the same kind of group of 8 or 10 of us that grew up together, and so it was just a competitive environment, really, is what it was. And so that's sort of how it all started.
Nice. During your playing career, you played a handful of times for different teams, primarily with the Leafs. Was there one team that you enjoyed playing for the most?
Well, I like playing in Toronto. I mean, that's a bit of a story. I got drafted by Quebec in 1992, and then I was part of a huge trade, which brought Matt Sundin to Toronto from the Nordique. I was a prospect at the time, young, when Wendell Clark left the Leafs, right? So, long story. My coach in junior was Motor City Smitty, Brad Smith, and he was a buddy of Wendell's, and I knew a lot of the people around Toronto, staff and medical people, some of the players, just through my coach in junior. And so when I got the news that I was coming to Toronto, that was a huge thrill, having grown up in southwestern Ontario and following the Leafs, watching them Saturday nights like every kid. So yeah, that playing for the Leafs was special. My first couple years were thin. I was just trying to get my foot in the door and get in the league. Played for Pat Burns, Mike Murphy, Pat Quinn in the end, and then after my fifth year, I got traded to Tampa. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time in Toronto. Great people. The one year with 1999, we went to the conference finals, which was really as close as I got to a Stanley Cup. But we had a team to do it. We kind of ran out of steam and had some injuries, but just the energy in the city when you play in Toronto for the team and in that playoff run specifically was incredible. Other than that, I played a lot of places, right? I really liked Vancouver. I liked places in Europe. I played in parts of Europe that I really liked too. Helsinki was a great hockey city. I was only there briefly, but really enjoyed it. And then I finished my career in Cologne in the German league, which was a really kind of a bit of a surprise how much hockey means to the people there. A big venue, 18,000 fans every night. Had a Canadian coach in Doug Mason who coached us, played alongside Dave McElwain, former Leaf, for a couple of years. That was a really cool place to play as well. Yeah.
That was really cool. And it's funny that you bring up Dave because he's a friend of mine as well. I've got to know him through a few alumni events, and we're working on him on I guess for the podcast as well.
Good,
so,
good.
Yeah. Now, when you played for the Maple Leafs in 1999, the Leafs moved to what was then called Air Canada Centre, now called Scotiabank Arena. You were the one that scored the first goal in the Air Canada Centre after the move from Maple Leaf Gardens. What was it feel like to you to be marked in the history books as the first person to score in the new building?
Well, I always joke, right? It was my 7th goal of the year, and it was February, so it was a kind of a cool thing to happen to a player like me. But yeah, it was pretty. It's pretty cool. I was watching the Leaf game last week, and it came up. Mike Johnson was on the broadcast with Gord Miller, and they were talking about it. Like in the picture of Mike and I when we're celebrating the goal. It's kind of been, yeah. I think those. I always say it, but it's like one of those things that doesn't normally happen to players like me. It's like reserved for a Matt Sundin or someone like that. But it was an innocent enough play. I first shift of the game for me, 4 minutes in or something, and I won a face-off that got thrown at the net. Danny Markov, I think, was the defenseman who shot it, and it just sort of laid in the slot, rolling puck. I swat at it, and I basically fan on it, right, and then finds its way through Jeff Hackett into the net. And so, yeah. I mean, pretty cool. Like all the memorabilia, that whole season. Looking back on it, was really pretty special. Like we closed out Maple Leaf Gardens, and we had the alumni and the players who were around the team for the weeks leading up to the closing. All the people we got to meet, special events we got to attend, and even the night itself, the last game was incredible. Yeah, and then we went on the road for, I think we played 3 or 4 in a row on the road, and then we came home to open up here at Canada Centre. And so yeah, the excitement every time you play Montreal, home or away, is a special night for the Leafs. And yeah, so those are the things that are sort of reserved for elite players generally. And so for a player like me to get it, I think it was a pretty popular one for the team. And yeah, it was a great thrill. I look at that picture when I'm home a lot. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. And like, yeah, as they say in hockey now, just get pucks on that and see what happens, right? And it worked
It
out.
barely made it. I have a picture of it from the back of the net, and Hackett's laying on his rear end, and the puck just just crosses the line. So it's a pretty it's a pretty it's not one I bring up to showcase for sure. The highlight.
Yeah. Well, talking about some other highlights, you were part of the Deutschland Cup in 1993 and 2005. What was it like for you to play in that cup twice and like that whole experience for you, coming kind of from the NHL style to that?
Well, yeah, it's always a thrill to represent your country. I played U17. I represented the province as a young kid in junior. I played U18 representing Canada. We played in Japan. Um, as a 19, 20-year-old, I'm on the Canadian men's Olympic team, and we would spend most of our time in Calgary training and playing exhibition games within North America, almost all exclusively that year against the U.S. team. But then we would make trips to Europe and play against club teams in Europe and play in events. So at that time, home base was Calgary, Father David Bauer Arena, and there was an actual men's Olympic program, and so you'd had a men's team that would train and play in these events all over the world. So we went. Our first trip to Europe was I think it was October, and we played in the Deutschland. We played other club teams in and around that trip. So we'd go for a couple of weeks, and then we'd come back and train in Calgary, and then we went back to Europe. Over the holidays and played in Moscow and what was the former Izvestia tournament. It was a yearly event, kind of like the Spangler Cup is now. And then we went back home, trained a little more, went back to the Globen tournament in Sweden, which was in I think early February, late January, before we went on to Lillehammer, Norway, who was the site of the Olympics that year. So we were back and forth from Calgary to Europe playing in these events. And so the one I played in later was I was playing in Europe and was invited to go play in it, and that was always you're playing in the German league at the time against a lot of imports from Canada, and so you get to kind of link up with these guys that some of them you don't, and put the Canadian jersey on and play for your country in a far off place was pretty special. So yeah, I always would and tried to when asked represent your country. It's pretty special and unique, and so I look back on those memories and have all those jerseys with the leaf on them hanging in my house as well.
That's incredible. And you know what? The Spangler Cup that we see now today is really cool. And it's nice to be able to play in those tournaments and kind of, like you said, represent your Canada because at the end of or represent your country, sorry. So at the end of the day, like playing in the NHL can be really cool, playing in the AHL and all these different opportunities. But as soon as you put the maple leaf on your chest, it's a whole other feeling that resonates a lot longer.
Well, I'll tell you too. Like when I was in Finland, we went to the Spangler. I was hurt at the time, and my wife and I were over there with our firstborn Ava, and so the team said, do you want to come to the Spangler Cup? Because our team, the Jokerit at the time, had been invited, and we said, yeah, I'd love to spend the holidays in Davos. You know what I mean? It's a nice part of the world, and so we went. I didn't get to play. I was about 10 days, 2 weeks from playing, but I was skating coming back from a knee injury. And I'll tell you, another part of the story was that same minor hockey team that I played on growing up as bantam age players. So I was like a 12, 13-year-old kid. We took a team to Switzerland for like a team trip. And that's a long story because local businessman named Lyle Giffen had a son who played some NHL games too and was a good pro. He'd taken a team over there to play 10 years before us, kind of thing. So he played in the Swiss league as a player in the 60s, and he had all these connections in Switzerland. So he set up this trip for us. We fundraised and we had Team Canada shirts and jackets and things, and we went and played in a bunch of tournaments. And we were there for, I think about 19 days, played 8 or 9 games, and we actually played in the same rink that they host the Spangler Cup in Davos at the time. And so since that time, that rink burnt down, and they rebuilt it. And so when I was back with Jokerit, it was really neat to see it because as a little boy, I played in that rink as well. So that was my my story about the Spangler, but what a tournament it's become, and special place to spend the holidays. Kind of a picturesque sort of Swiss town, right?
Yeah, definitely. Now, you've mentioned a lot about being on the road, traveling a lot, playing for different teams. Throughout your entire hockey career, what was your most interesting story from being on the road?
Oh wow.
I know there's a lot. There could be a lot of these. You thought I was coming at you with
Hey,
a
I'm
question.
not sure I can tell all those stories, right? We were joking with the coaches here the other day, just like some of the things that happened on like some of the pranks. Like we saw, like I was joking about. I saw a guy. I'm trying to remember. It doesn't matter who it was, but um, we got back from dinner and they'd taken his room, his bed, his nightstand, his TV, and everything, and it was in the hallway. You know what I mean? Imagine you come back to the room at 8 or 9 at night on the road, and you go to put your room key in, and all your stuff is out in the hallway. Somebody got in there, and another trip I was with Phoenix. I love this one too, and we'd gone to medieval times to have dinner. Right, so it was like a team thing. One of the guys set it up, so we thought it was set up through our captain at the time. It was Shane Doan, but it turned out somebody else had set it up, but they used Shane Doan's credit card to pay for it. so, but then Shane, of course, he didn't know that until we got on the bus, and everybody, and this particular player went up to the microphone and said thanks to Donor for fitting the bill for dinner when Donor didn't even know about it, right? So just all the stuff you do that's goofy, and
Yeah.
the things you remember on the road when you're playing pranks on each other. That's what I remember the most.
I can picture Donor just going and like using his credit card for like Tim Hortons or something and be like, why is it saying denied? I have a lot of
Yeah.
money on this.
He wasn't going to wait till you had to pay it off. I know that. So
Yeah. Oh man. Now, talking about the time that you played hockey to today's game, what do you think of the players today and how the game has changed? Do you see a lot of like Ovechkin chasing Gretzky's career and the young superstars like Connor McDavid playing in the league now and things like that? What do you think about the game today and how it's changed compared to when you played?
Well, it's entirely different because when I played, it was they allowed all the obstruction, like all the rule book has been kind of clearly defined in the interim. Like I think in my time, I think you'd say the New Jersey Devils were the blueprint for success when I came into the league, and they trapped and checked and mucked it up and played a heavy kind of game, neutral zone trap game, and so defense was the main focus for teams at that time, and you could hook and you could hold and you could slow the game down. Good players had a harder time get scoring. So I mean, I think the combination of that and players at 12, 14 have personal trainers, and they have nutritionists, and they have skill coaches, and they have all these people who are picking apart different elements of the game and making them better. So when they come to the league, to pro hockey, the gap isn't as wide. And like my first couple of years, you run into Scott Stevens or you run into some of the guys in the league, and you realize this is a man's game. It's a different game. You got to be strong. You got to be physical. You have to be able to handle the rigors of that. I think the players, the speed of the game and the rules governing the game have allowed players like that are smaller, not as strong, perhaps, to still excel. And they're better prepared because of all the people that help them along the way. So I think the skills of the game, the speed of the game has never been remotely close to what it is now. Fourth line players can fly and make plays and do things that weren't really common back in the day unless you're on an elite team. So yeah, entirely different. Players are smarter. I'm coaching, so you got to be prepared. You have to give them concrete things to work on individually and as a group. They expect that because that's what they've grown up with. But in general, even here at the third level of European hockey, the players are way better. And I look at it like some of the obscure countries that were sort of, 6th, 8th, 10th in the world, 12th in the world back in the day are now becoming elite. And the quality of player in general, right behind stars in the NHL is incredible. There's so many really good players in the world. And that wasn't always the case. So it's changed a lot. Rules governing it, freed players up to show their skill. I think it's great. I think it's the way it should be. Players are more determined and better prepared at a younger age, and so all that just leads to a quality of play across the world that's improving all the time. Yeah.
Well, if coaching ever, if you get bored of coaching where you are, you could always come back and become an analyst, because that was a great take on that. And just
well, I used to be an analyst, Ryan. Right? I used to do junior hockey on Sportsnet, right? So I've done a little bit of that work too. Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, my last question for you, with all the experience that you have, what advice would you give to like the future hockey players? If there's anyone watching this podcast, what advice would you want to give to them, how to kind of prep their game to be ready for the big show?
Well, just the things that, I just spoke of. Like, I think there's so many skill coaches and so many people at your disposal now that I'm not sure it would be that not difficult. You need to put the work in and have the, you have to have the passion, going back to question one, right? Like, you know what I mean? You have to want to put the work in, and you have to really love the game in order to do it. But there's a lot of people that that can help, from the physical side of it to the way you train and take care of yourself to the mental side of it, that can help you, streamline to that level. Do I think it's always the best way? Not for everybody, but again, if you're hungry and you have passion and will to do that, there's so many people that can help you to do it, and take advantage of those people. Put the work in, not just on the ice, but off the ice. I have this conversation with lots of players. It's July and they want to be on the ice 3 times a week. I don't think that's always the right scenario to develop. I think they need to do other things and have other interests and work at other sports or their body or other things that can help them improve in their individual sport. But I also do that, so I'm also aware of it. So when I'm coaching, I sometimes give them a break and we talk about other things. But I think of, the modern player at a young age has so many advantages, equipment, even, so the equipment that they get to use these days, the sticks, especially skates, are so much better, lighter. So yeah, I think you have to have a bit of everything. I think ultimately, to get to the highest level in any sport, I think you have to have a level of athleticism, not just in that particular sport, but in sort of all sports that helps you adapt and experience coaching in other sports that will help you learn quicker and understand the nuances of sport quicker. I think that's all really important. And just if you have the drive and you have the passion, like we talked, to put the time and effort in, then there's lots of people who can help you get there.
Awesome. Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today. I really appreciate it. And best of luck with the playoff run.
Good, man. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.